Hello, everyone, and we are the Varsity Voices, and we're here with our Week 9 recap. Dan, the last game or games of the regular season. We've talked about this a couple of times, but how fast has this season gone by?
Yeah, I really it really bums me out that the regular season's over. I love the
Right.
playoffs, but having just sat through a horrible Bears game
Oh,
finish,
God.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It's this is such a welcome thing watching high school football. Just the overall watching of it, the games. I know we you can find things to complain about everywhere, but God, it's a lot more. It's a lot better experience than watching the NFL and even college in some ways.
Yeah. Now, it bothers me that the Bears lost, but what bothers me even more is the way they played that game.
Yes.
Um, and even though they had it in hand and then it was the Hail Mary at the end, for them to lose the game, I thought it was really kind of fitting that they lost that game
Yeah.
because there was no way they should have won that game. They just did not look good.
Yeah, no, they're thoroughly outplayed, and we talked about it. How nothing ever looks easy for them offensively. It's
No.
everything. Everyone's always covered. There's always linemen in the quarterback's face. Pick a quarterback. It's like,
Right.
how the offensive line is built and plays, and it just nothing. It's just always a struggle to move down the field, and it's like this. Two steps or one step forward and two steps back, and it's just a painful watch.
It's frantic.
Yeah,
That's
and they're
that's the word I
frantic.
use all the time. It's frantic when I watch the Bears, and I'm not sure why it has to be that way. I don't know if it's the coaching, the players, combination of both. But when I sit and watch the Bears game, it makes me nervous.
Yeah,
To watch them on offense, it really does
yeah.
because I'm like, I feel like
Snap the ball, snap
snap
it,
the ball.
snap it.
Then I feel like some of the linemen are going to line up in the backfield. Like, am I getting the ball? You know,
Yes,
I
yeah,
mean, it's
right.
just so frantic. Everybody's
Yeah,
arms are flailing about and pointing.
yeah,
Everybody's pointing to different directions. I
right.
don't know what's going on.
Yeah, lined
Yeah,
up on the wrong side.
right.
It felt like they rarely called the play that came in from the sidelines. It felt like they were changing the play at the line of scrimmage, every single snap. It's like they were
Yeah.
treating the Commanders defense like the 85 Bears. And I mean, it was sometimes I think these teams give other teams too much respect or something. And coming out of a bye, it was just ugly that it looked like that offensively.
Yeah. Well, if you believe Tony Romo and what he says, and
Oof,
yeah, I'm halfway. I'm 50-50 on Tony Romo, but
oof,
what
yeah,
he was saying about that was that these both teams, the Commanders and the Bears, give their quarterbacks the leeway or to immediately change the play, at the line of scrimmage. Now, it seems like the Commanders, they don't look like they're, you know, flailing about like the Bears do, right? But the Bears, if they're doing that, and, all credit to Caleb Williams to be able to do that, but he's got to be a little more calm and collected, and whatever else word you want to use for that, as far as calling the plays, because they look frantic. They look,
yeah,
yeah, like they don't know what they're doing.
yeah.
So,
There is a little bit of that. So yeah,
yeah,
sometimes just run it. They like tag a play, run it. As
right.
it comes in. We used to get tags, and even on defenses, you can make all sorts of adjustments and checks, and sometimes a play would come in with a tag, run it or play it,
Right.
regardless of what they do.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the Bears. We're not here to talk about the Bears, Dan. We're here to talk about the Chicago Catholic League and football in the Chicago Catholic League, which week 9 had some really good games. Some games that everybody was looking forward to. We had some blowouts. We had some upsets. A lot of playoff berths were on the line as well as seedings. Some teams got in, some teams did not. We thought they maybe were going to get in with 4 games. So we had a lot of excitement in the Chicago Catholic League in Week 9, and we're here to break it down, right, Dan?
Yep. Let's go for it.
All right, let's go. So let's start with one of the more highly anticipated games of the year, and this is Mount Carmel and Loyola. These two teams combined to win 20 state championships. I think Loyola won the last 2 Class 8A titles. Mount Carmel won the last 2 7A titles. So, for sure, this was a big game in the state as well as the Chicago Catholic League. Both quarterbacks, Ryan Fitzgerald for Loyola and Jack Elliott for Mount Carmel, they have been nursing some injuries coming in, but they both played in this game, Dan, and they looked healthy to me. Loyola really rolled to a 31-7 win at Mount Carmel, and a bit of a surprising outcome to me.
Yeah.
In this game, I thought it was going to be closer for sure, but Fitzgerald, really looked in command. He was 17 for 23 for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. They, on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, especially up front, with some of the linemen, I felt like Loyola really dominated this game. Jack Elliott, had a good game. He was 22 of 43 for 260 yards. Did throw an interception, threw 1 touchdown pass to Quentin Burrell. But I really think the story of this game, Dan, was the Loyola defense. I feel like they came to play. Like I said, they dominated on the defensive line. They held Jack Elliott in check. He really wanted to throw the ball. And, even though he completed 22 passes, he attempted 43 passes, and the defensive backs were just all over the field, Dan, and playing really well. So what that leads us into, Dan, when we're talking about defense,
I feel like
something's
coming. It's coming.
It is for sure. There he is. There's Zuko.
Zuko.
Yeah. So tell us, Dan, about what Zuko's Dog of the Week award is. Again, one more time, in the regular season here.
All right. So Zuko's Dog of the Week is a defensive award. We felt like the offense gets a ton of attention, most of the attention throughout the year. So we wanted to highlight some defensive players. Zuko is he plays and he acts like I want defensive players to play and act, and just relentless attitude and aggressive in a good way, and
in a good way,
But I've always thought when I've played with him that is how I would want my defensive players to play. So Zuko's Dog of the Week comes from there, Joe. And we've added a dog pound, to give guys who had great performances some recognition.
And we've got a big dog pound this week, don't we?
Full.
Dan?
The pound is full.
Pound is full.
Yes. Yeah. So Joe, we've got a bunch of them here. So from let's see, we'll start with Bennett Academy. So Jack Clevenger. His second pick 6 of the year. So in Bennett's win this week, he had a pick 6. Also, Marty Radgowski. So a name we talked a ton about early on. Marty was, think he had suffered some injuries, maybe battling that. He also had I guess you'd call it a fumble recovery. Ben Albert poked the ball out after a reception and right into Marty's hands. He took it to the house, about 65 yards. Great run. Nice. Broke a couple tackles late to help Bennett get that victory. So Marty Radgowski makes the pound. Isaac Alexander, former Dawg.
Yeah.
Week 1 Dawg. And we were at Montini this week and presented Isaac with his dog tags. and he came out and had another great game in the true spirit of Zuko. So he was all over the place.
He's had an outstanding season, Dan.
Yep.
Yeah, he really has.
He's a heck of a player. Yeah. From Montini as well, we've got Nicky Castaldo, who had 8 tackles and a forced fumble. Great game for Nicky. From Fenwick, Jake Thies or Thies. Someone's going to have to tell me.
Younger brother of Tom Thies or Thies. Yes. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and there's a few guys on this list, Joe, and one of the benefits of the varsity voices in our Friday Night Blitz is that we're watching these games. And so you might not always find the stats defensively, but we see guys that we call it jump off the film, and they you can just tell they are having their difference makers in the game. And that's what Jake was in this game. Just open field tackles all over the place. He's absolutely a difference maker. Fenwick's got a great defense, and Jake's a big part of that, as well as the other Dog Pound member, Jack Paris.
Yes.
He's had a great season. He can flat out fly. He had several big tackles and big time plays at crucial times.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
You mentioned a great play on 4th and short.
Fourth and short, a couple times. 4th and short, he just comes up. He has got tremendous closing speed, Dan, and he just, like you say, jumps off the film for sure. Yeah.
Yep. From St. Francis, Joe, Isaac Saldana. He had a late interception in crunch time to help St. Francis with their great victory over Nazareth. Zach, and I'm going to butcher this name too. I think it's Beitler. Zach Beitler from Joliet Catholic. He's another guy. Now he had a punt return for a touchdown this week, but he's this guy that just his presence is always known on the field. You just see him making play after play as a defensive back for Joliet Catholic. Joe Marmion, Brian Scales, really, really good game. He had an interception, 2 tackles for loss. Oh no, 2 interceptions, excuse me, and a punt return in Marmion's victory over Leo. I had Owen Lynch. Where he plays is escaping me, Joe.
Linebacker from St. Rita, Dan.
That's right. Yes. Sorry, I blanked there. So Owen Lynch, 6 tackles, an interception. So another worthy member of the Dog Pound, Joe. But our dog of the week. All right. Our dog of the week, Zuko's dog of the week this week is Donovan Robinson, Loyola Academy. He had an interception, 2 tackles for loss, a long kickoff return, and just controlled the passing game. Was all over the field and an all-around awesome game. You mentioned that Jack Elliott had some good stats. His completion percentage was lower than normal, though.
Yes, for sure.
So Donovan Robinson was a big factor in that. You watched that game. What are your thoughts about how he played as well?
He was all over the field in coverage, Dan. Not only did, like you mentioned, did he have the interception, tackle for loss, but when I watch him on film and watch what he did from a coverage standpoint and holding Mount Carmel and Jack Elliott down a bit, under what they would normally do. He was just all over the field, leading the defensive backs, leading the coverage, and is another player who just jumps off the film, and he goes sideline to sideline. Dan, he's just outstanding. He's the University of Washington commit too as well. So
yes, they got a good one.
Really, they got a really good player there.
Yep. So Zuko's dog of the week, Joe, Donovan Robinson, Loyola Academy.
All right. Well, let's give him his due. Donovan Robinson, congratulations. You're this week's Zuko's dog of the week. So one more thing on the Mount Carmel Loyola game. Let's see. I just want to give you an update on where these 2 teams are going, Dan, for next week, the first week of the playoffs. So Loyola got the number 12 seed. Can you believe they're number 12 seed, by the way?
I know.
In 8A. They will open play. They host 6-3 Belleville East, who's the 21st seed. Mount Carmel, number 19 seed. They take on the 14 seed Harlem in the first round of the 7A tournament.
Wow. Yep. It's like non-conference all over again, right, Joe?
Yes,
It's
it
a
is.
lot of teams to figure out and learn that we haven't followed this year. But
Yep.
it's all fun, all great, all good things. Joe, sticking in the blue, Brother Rice. Brother Rice was very methodical in their game, beating St. Ignatius 24-7. St. Ignatius got on the board first with a scoop and score on a fumble, but Brother Rice bounced back. 2 touchdown passes from CJ Gray to Jimmy Maxon, added a touchdown run from Tyler Lofton and a field goal from Brady Gomez. Brother Rice is a 21 seed. So, and this is one for us to watch. So Brother Rice opens up in conference play. Essentially, they travel to Fenwick, a 12 seed, in what is a tough draw for both those teams, but a great watch for us in round one. Could be one of the, if not the best game, one of the best games in round one.
Yeah.
St. Ignatius ends up 3-6 in their first year in the rough and tumble blue. But they had a lot of good things happen, and we know they've got some great players there. It's a shame that their season's over.
Yeah, it is. And okay, so let's go to the that was the blue division. Let's go to the green division, Dan. I think I got that right. And Saint Rita versus IC. So Saint Rita won this game 42-20. Saint Rita goes to 7-2 in the regular season. They get a share of the green division title. IC dropped to 4-5 to finish the season and essentially knocked them out of the playoffs. We thought IC might be one of those teams with 4 wins that might get into or have a chance to get into the playoffs, but several other teams in 4A who were who had 4 wins went into the last game of the season and they won that game. So they got to 5 wins and essentially knocked IC out. St. Rita, again, Armbruster had a really good game. Their quarterback threw for 197 yards. He spread the ball around to his different wide receivers, Walter Jones, also Donovan Evans, who had a touchdown. Nick Herman did a lot of damage in this game on the ground for St. Rita. He rushed for over 140 yards, Dan, and 3 touchdowns. So outstanding game for Nick Herman. IC, Will Bright, their quarterback, had a good game throwing the ball. I think he threw for almost 300 yards, but they had a couple of costly turnovers, a couple of penalties, which really hurt them. So, as I mentioned, IC season is now over with that loss. They don't get into the playoffs. St. Rita goes into the 7A playoffs as the number 10 seed. They'll take on the number 23 seed, 6-3 Guilford Vikings. So, that'll be an interesting game to watch coming up.
Yep. All right. Sticking in that division, Joe, in the green, maybe one of the, not only the best game of the weekend, out of a weekend that's really good games, maybe one of the better games of the year that I watched in the league this year. St. Francis wins 39-36 against Nazareth. So Brady Palmer, 4 touchdowns, two to Zach Washington. Ian Willis also had 1 rushing and 1 receiving. Dario Milivojevic.
Maybe close enough, Dan.
A touchdown as well. Logan Malachuk for Naz threw for just under 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jake Sestone, Trenton Walker on the receiving end of those. Lesroy Tittle had over 100 yards rushing, and just is a wrecking crew running the football. He's a lot of fun to watch. Both those teams, Joe, finished the regular season at 7-2. Naz enters the playoffs as a 3 seed and will host number 14 seed Peyton from the Chicago Public League.
Okay.
Number 4 seed St. Francis will host Sterling. So both teams kickers, Evan Kalinsky and for St. Francis and Frankie Nichols for Nazareth, had successful field goal conversions. So we talked a little kicking earlier in the week. So we had some field goals. I want to make sure we highlight those. But
Yeah, for sure.
and then I mentioned it, Isaac Saldana, the big time interception, which found him squarely in the dog pound this week. So St. Francis over Nazareth, 39-36 in a great game.
Yeah, you were watching that game, Dan, on our Friday Night Blitz, and that was one which came right down to the wire and really exciting game. So it's going to be exciting watching both those teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, they should have a good run. I don't know when they would possibly meet, but certainly likely as the playoffs go, because both those are great teams.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's go to Marist and Notre Dame. I believe, is this the Orange Division, Dan?
Yep.
All right, good. It's only taken me 9 weeks to get that down.
Believe me,
is that
the
all right?
same way. Yeah, I have cheat sheets all over the place.
Right. But Marist versus Notre Dame. So Marist wins this game 34-0 over Notre Dame. They finish up the regular season with an 8-1 record. Their only loss, Marist, was that double overtime loss to Joliet Catholic. A really good game that we covered on one of our Friday Night Blitz segments. Notre Dame ended its season at 3-6. The one thing, as I was looking at this, Dan, Notre Dame got shut out 5 times this season. We talked about them having a little trouble on offense, and when you look back at the entire season or the season as a whole for them, it really shows that they just had trouble putting up some points this year. But
67 points all year, Joe.
Yeah,
that's rough.
Really,
you're going to struggle. Yeah.
Yep, you are. Jake Ritter again. One of those dual threat quarterbacks that we've talked about. That's really good in the Chicago Catholic League. He had 3 passing touchdowns in this game to Brendan Kern and Gavin Obrachta as wide receivers. John McAuliffe, his running back, had another receiving touchdown. They got another running back involved, Luke Dentapel, who had a touchdown as well. Marist goes into the playoffs now. 8A playoffs. They'll take on 5-4 Glenbrook South in the first round of the playoffs.
All right, sticking in that division, Joe. Joliet Catholic against Providence in the Holy War. The Joliet Catholic ended Providence's hopes for a playoff spot with a 21-18 victory in a really hard-fought game. This was another great game to watch. Zach Beitler returned a punt 54 yards to open the game up, got him in the dog pound. Larry Stringham for Joliet Catholic went over 100 yards again. And a touchdown. And Vince Bremner added a score for JCA. Providence had a great effort from A.J. Rayford with a touchdown pass. And running back Mikhail Dilworth added a score as well. Ian Mikulski was on the receiving end of that, or had a touchdown reception as well as a reception for a 2-point conversion for Providence. JCA just did what they did. Did what they do. They kept the ball. It felt like they had the ball the entire second half. It was just one of those things where they were converting third down after third down, maybe a fourth down here and there. Just really tough to stop if they are third and short or fourth and short. It's almost impossible to keep them from getting a first down. So it was like a masterclass in Joliet Catholic football. Joliet Catholic goes in as a 6 seed to take on the 11 seed Jacksonville out of Central Illinois. Jacksonville is, let's see, where are they at? They are 6-3. So that game will be at Joliet Catholic.
Yeah. Dan, I watched a couple of highlights of that game, and they were primarily of Larry Stringham. I don't know. Did he score 3 touchdowns in that game?
I don't think so, because they had a punt return for a touchdown.
Right. Okay. But one of the things I thought as I was watching him run, and they his size,
Yeah.
I think they list him at 6'1", 215 or 220,
Oof,
something
man.
like that.
That is a
Um,
rough night for tacklers.
yes, I thought when I was playing, and I won't say when that was, Dan, he probably would have played tackle for us. Yeah. Yeah, but he's an outstanding player and just runs so hard.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
smooth. He
and
runs hard
smooth.
and very
Yeah,
smooth. Yeah,
yeah,
he is I feel like they have like a what do you call that? Like a mold that they get their running backs out of. They all look the same when they run. They're featured backs. They all are kind of long striders that run hard, stay behind their pads. Just a lot of fun to watch play running back.
yeah. They're going to be a tough out in the
Oh yeah.
playoffs for
Oh yeah.
sure.
Yep.
And I do like the if if you if you look at the brackets and look at the seedings and look at who who they play, and who they might play, I think they've got a pretty good path here. So we'll keep an eye on Joliet Catholic, Dan, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to St. Viator versus St. Patrick. So St. Viator won this game 21-12 over St. Pat's. St. Viator finishes up the season at 4-5. St. Viator, we've talked about this. They won their first three, and then they lost 5 in a row, and they win their final game against St. Pat's. I'm sure this has been a bit of a disappointing season for St. Viator. They came into the year with some high expectations. We talked to Coach Archibald, in the preseason, and we had high hopes for St. Viator as well. So, just kind of a tough year for them. St. Patrick finishes the year at 2-7, losing their last 6 games. Another school where we had a chance to talk to the coach. I think they were looking for a better year this year, but looking forward to next year for both of these teams, Dan.
Yeah, they both. I've said it about St. Pat's a couple times. I think they wish the season were another 3 or 4 games. Now they may go to the Prep Bowl, so I'm
Right.
guessing they will. But so that'll be interesting to see what they do with that and how they perform, because I think they were getting better. They were improving. One of those teams that was making strides at the end of the year. So yeah, St. Viator. I know this was kind of a year they were pointing to with Cooper Komet and some of the other athletes that they had, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So disappointing that they were unable to get in this year.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So on to the other purple game, which was another outstanding game, and that was Bennett defeating DePaul Prep 31-24, and it was Ryan Kabaki was outstanding again. It was a great game, back and forth, a lot of scoring. Ryan Kabaki threw 2 touchdown passes to Luke Doyle, who just seems to score 2 touchdowns every week. But for Bennett, the difference-making scores were on the defensive side of the ball. We mentioned the pick 6 by Jack Clevenger, and then a fumble/interception from Marty Radgowski that he took to the house. They were critical in the victory over DePaul Prep. Michael Conway, talking about kicking, was 1 for 2 on field goal attempts. So, and Juju Rodriguez was just outstanding with touchdown passes to Matt Osterman and Braden Peavy and to Justin Stranier. Both these quarterbacks, like we talked about, during the game, they are a lot of fun to watch. And Bennett will host Perspectives Leadership Academy out of the Chicago Public School division, and DePaul Prep hasn't been announced where they're playing yet, but they will also play a Chicago Public School Diet. So, so interesting matchup for both those teams. Bennett wins the Purple Division this year.
Yeah, good for them. It's they had a bit of an up and down season. They were up early in the season, scoring a lot of points, and had a couple games here during the middle of the season where things didn't go as well for them. They had some injuries, but this win over DePaul Prep for them is really big, and I think kind of sets them up well for going into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely going in on a higher note. Interesting about those two teams really being evenly matched. So the points for Bennett scored this year 263 points. DePaul Prep scored 264 points. So two offenses that were really evenly matched and scored a whole bunch of points this year.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, good. And so I think I forgot one in the red division here, Dan, and that is Leo and Marmion. And they played on Saturday, and big game for Marmion because
Oh
they
yeah.
were 4-3. Let's see, 4-3 going into the game. And Marmion beats Leo 20-14 in a close game. Finished the regular season at 5-4, and they get into the playoffs. Marmion also was 3-0 in the red division, so they're red division champs. Huge deal for them, I think, Dan. And we talked to Coach Guerra. I've been talking about the different coaches that we talked to in preseason, and he had big objectives and big goals for Marmion this year. And I think when you look at the regular season as a whole, he would come out and say, yeah, this has been successful for us, winning the red division plus getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, in year one, that's really good. They had some great performances. We've talked about them being gritty a lot, and they played like it. I felt like Leo, is another team that just was getting better and better. Javon Logan had a great year. He had almost 700 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. But for Marmion, Sean Dahlman had 22 carries for 90 yards. And we talked about how Cameron Tolliver was back at the quarterback position. Now we don't know if he was hurt or what happened there, but he threw 3 touchdown passes, Joe.
Right.
Yeah. Michael Roche had one, Jack Young and Colin McHenry all had touchdown receptions. And then we mentioned Brian Scales, who was a Dog Pound member, 2 interceptions. He also had a long punt return. So big day for Marmion, and even though Leo finishes 1-8, I think their future's bright.
Yeah, I do too. Marmion with this win, like we mentioned, gets themselves into the 5A playoffs. They go in as a 15 seed, and they will face the number 2 seed Rochelle, who finished the regular season at 8-1. So it's not an easy draw for Marmion, but they're there, and that's what they wanted, and give themselves a chance. And they get to go up against a really good Rochelle team who, by the way, Dan, in week 9, Rochelle played Marian Catholic. Rochelle beat Marian Catholic 48-23. Marian Catholic, they finish up at 2-7. Like I mentioned, Rochelle is 8-1 now. One interesting thing about Rochelle, Dan, is the last 2 years of the playoffs, I think they've lost in the first round to a Chicago Catholic League team. So they're looking to turn that around against Marmion this year. But again, it's going to be a really good game, a really good challenge for Marmion. And looking forward to watching that game. And like I mentioned, Marian Catholic finishes up at 2-7.
Joe, how many? We talked about Bennett and DePaul Prep. How many points they scored? You know how many points Rochelle scored this year?
It's got to be a lot.
384.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot of points.
Well,
that's over 40 points a game.
Over 40 points a game, and they scored 40 unanswered points just in the second quarter, Dan, against Marian. Wow. Marian Catholic.
Whoa.
And then they just kind of coasted from there. But, the one thing I did notice, and looking at, I was able to see a little bit of the film and some of the highlights. They don't throw the ball. This is another team, Rochelle, that says, you know exactly what we're going to do, and we are going to run it. We are going to run it. We are going to run it, and you are going to have to try and stop us, because that's all they want to do, and they do it really well. So it's
Yeah.
going to be a tough test for Marmion.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll be fun to watch.
yeah.
Let's see, Joe. So we went over the red. So I've got Montini and St. Lawrence.
Montini, St. Lawrence. Yeah, big
Yes.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big game. So Montini moves to 7-2 by a 28-3 victory over St. Lawrence. And Joe, this game was all about Israel Abrams and the Montini defense. Israel Abrams had 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Peyton Nelson and 1 to Christian Harkins. He also ran for a score. Montini's defense was outstanding, led by week 1 dog of the week, Isaac Alexander. They kind of dominated this game. I know Kwiatkowski for St. Lawrence did not play again. We'll see what his status is going into the playoffs. But Montini is a number 9 seed, and they will travel to play North Lawndale out of the Chicago Public League. And then St. Lawrence, Joe, bear with me a second.
Yep.
I don't know if you have it, but St. Lawrence
plays Brother Rice, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, St. Lawrence plays
no.
Richmond Burton.
Richmond Burton. Yeah,
Richmond Burton. So
Okay.
so that game will be at Richmond Burton. Richmond Burton is 7-2. So that should be a lot of fun out of they're out of the Kishwaukee River Conference.
Yes, Richmond Burton, always a really good team. They're right up close to the Wisconsin-Illinois border. Always field a good team. They love to run the ball as well, so that'll be a heck of a matchup against St. Lawrence's defense.
Yeah, it will. That'll be a lot of fun. Interesting to watch.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the last game, and this is also in the white division, and this was Fenwick and Carmel. So Fenwick comes out on top in this game, Dan, 36-12. Fenwick, they finished the regular season at 7-2, 3-0 in the white division, so they're white division champs this year, Dan. Fenwick. They've relied big on their defense all year. And, the defense, again, played outstanding against what we know is a pretty good and can be explosive Carmel offense. Jake Paris, member of our Dog Pound this week. Jake Thies, member of our Dog Pound this week.
Or Thies.
Thies, right. Nate Marshall, previous Zuko's Dog of the Week winner. All had really big games on defense. Interesting thing for Fenwick this week is Frank Hosty was playing quarterback. Not sure if Jalen Morgan is hurt or not, but Frank Hosty had a really good game. He threw for 3 touchdown passes. Even in a loss, Trey Taylor had another really good game. Threw for 279 yards, ran for a TD as well, but they just had trouble scoring the ball. Again, Dan, that's 2 weeks in a row. Carmel finishes 3-6. They dropped their last 4 games in a row, and I'm sure Carmel, another team that had really big plans, big ambitions starting this season, but things just did not seem to go their way this year.
Yeah, that's, and all these teams that didn't get in, they're going to look at some of these first round games and, probably be irritated all over again, right? To see some of the games and some of the scores. We know that some will be lopsided. There's, I guess, get on a soapbox a little bit here and say that, there's been discussions about changing the system and the format for the IHSA playoffs. I'm all for it, because I think that they need to do something to make sure that the best teams, the top 32 or however they want to do it, are in the playoffs, and regardless of conference, because it just doesn't seem very equitable right now, and I know that there can't be anyone that's really happy, right?
No,
or that thinks
you're
that
right.
thinks it works out well. So
yeah,
I'm all for continuous changing and modifying of the current system.
Yeah, and maybe we're a little bit partial to the Chicago Catholic League because
A
that's who
little
we.
bit.
But when you look at some of the teams in the Chicago Catholic League that did not make the playoffs this year, and I'll mention them. You look at Saint Ignatius, really talented team. You look at Carmel, another one. You look at IC,
Yeah.
and you've been mentioning it throughout the year, Dan. Some of these teams just got CCL'd, right?
Yes.
And even though those three teams, and there may be a couple more
Yeah.
in the Chicago
Providence.
Catholic League, Providence, another one, yeah. Um, we know just because we watched them. I mean, if you put them in the playoffs, they're gonna make some noise, but they don't get a chance to get there. So I know you can't manipulate everything, so
Right.
so
Right.
every team gets in
Right.
all the
No,
time,
you're
or
right. You're right. Yeah.
but you do want to make sure that you've got some of the best teams in the state of Illinois, who are not sitting home during the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got, for example, you've got Sterling. So Sterling lost to Notre Dame 17-0. And I know that was way back in week 2. Sterling's earned their way into the playoffs. I have no issue with that, and they're going to go to Wheaton to play St. Francis,
Right.
and so if I'm Notre Dame, I'm like, well, if Sterling's in, gosh, you've got to think that we would have an opportunity to compete against some of these teams as well. Like I said, you've got to earn it. You've got to go
Yeah.
out and get it in the regular season, and there are plenty of chances to do that. But when you factor in some of the, we talked about punching up, so the size of schools versus the division that they play in, and the teams that they play against in the Catholic League, in these interdivision games. You've got some small schools playing some really big schools. So the talent on the field might be similar, but there's still something to be said for that. So
Yeah, there is.
anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
just a little hop on our soapbox.
I know, and I'm not sure you can come up with a complex enough algorithm to
Right.
to take into account all these different things. But the easy way is add more teams,
Right.
And maybe that's going to happen. I mean, I know there's always discussions going on, regarding the playoffs and who gets in, who doesn't. So we'll see what happens going forward. But one thing I wanted to say, Dan, on the for Fenwick is they take on Brother Rice. It's in the first round of the playoffs in 7A. So I believe it's the only CCL matchup in the first round. The other interesting thing there is that Fenwick, who's been talked about and has been in 6A all year, they move up to 7A for the playoffs. So Fenwick has moved up a class. I'm not sure how much of a difference that's going to make, but Fenwick takes on Brother Rice in the first round of the playoffs in 7A.
Yeah, and games move to some are Friday, some are Saturday, so it's a great chaotic weekend. It's a lot of high school football to follow. You and I, we'll date ourselves here. We used to love the Wednesday game.
Love playing on Wednesdays. Yeah, no school.
It was a lot of that was. I think that's probably the reason why we loved it. But and with the way these coaches want to prepare, I don't think you probably can find one coach that would vote to bring that game back
for a Wednesday.
Yeah. However, but if they did add teams, it might be a fun little thing to bring that back, because that was a coach that I played for, Gary Goforth, used to say he loved it because it was the only thing happening. High school football wasn't competing against anything else on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
So they had that day to themselves. It was a big deal. It was like a holiday. The schools were off. So maybe if they add a bunch of teams, they could bring back the Wednesday round 1 game. But I highly doubt it.
They would have to. Come on, they'd have to bring it back. Wednesday game. Yeah.
Knowing these coaches and how they want to prep, there's no way they would be out of their minds.
They would be. When do you think was the final year for the Wednesday games, Dan?
Ooh,
You think that's now? You played Wednesdays,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
So
We played our first game
that
was
was in the
Wednesday.
'70s.
Get out of here.
I was in the '80s, played in the Wednesday games. Okay. It's got to be what, late '90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. Can I go any bigger gap there in years?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I bet it didn't make it to 2000.
yeah, yeah. I like the Wednesday games. You know who else liked the Wednesday games? Were the students who didn't play football.
Right.
And yeah, because school would end at 10:30 and everybody would just pile out onto the field or hop on buses going to the games, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was that was the thing about the Wednesday games, which I think is a real positive, is you got all the students out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
now students, sure, there's a lot of students
Everyone's
who
busy. Yeah.
go to the games, but they're busy on Fridays and Saturdays, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They got
Wednesday,
stuff to do.
Wednesday, you got them.
Yeah, you do. You do.
It's
And it was an event, and you could have a
yeah.
pep rally and all that. Yeah. So, anyway,
All right.
a
Okay.
couple little bunny hops onto soapboxes for you and I tonight.
We'll send an email to the IHSA saying
Sternly worded.
yes, we'd like Wednesday games again.
Yeah.
All right. So one more time, Dan, before we sign off on this episode, who do we got for our Zuko's Dog of the Week?
Zuko's Dog of the Week this week, Donovan Robinson, defensive back for Loyola. Interception, 2 tackles for loss, long kickoff return, controlled the passing game of Mount Carmel, held a really powerful Mount Carmel offense to 7 points. So I know it's a group effort, but Donovan Robinson led the way for the Ramblers.
All right, great, and congratulations, Donovan. And Dan, is this our last recap episode, or what are we doing? You tell me going forward.
Well, yeah,
we got a prognosticus episode coming up for the playoff games.
Hell yes.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah, we gotta keep on rolling. The only thing that is maybe a little hiccup here with Friday Night Blitz, that can't be avoided. But other than that, we're rolling on.
We are rolling on.
We are going to be in your stereo all day, every week.
All day, every day, 3 times. Well, not every day, but 3 times a week minimum. I don't know.
Minimum, yeah. We're gonna be singing show tunes.
Yes, for sure. All right, to fill some time. Well, anyways, we appreciate everybody listening. The regular season, 9 weeks. You've been with us. We appreciate it. Continue listening. We're going to bring you a lot more through the playoffs and beyond. So, keep coming back, keep listening, and we'll keep talking. Right, Dan?
Awesome. Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we will talk to you soon.